Greetings everyone, my name is Dr. Jason Freeman and I'd like to welcome you all to my channel. Alright, so last week I did an out of the theater reaction as well as a non-spoiler review for James Gunn's Superman. And so as promised, here is the spoiler review. So there will be spoilers in this video. And so if you don't want spoilers for James Gunn's Superman, please click off the video now. Alright, you've been warned. That did not go as planned. Alright, so what did I like about this film? Well, the thing I liked most about this film was its expansive comic book based universe. For example, during the fight with the kaiju, Superman is talking about taking it to an intergalactic zoo, so not killing it, and so that's straight out of All-Star Superman. That was in this comic, and so that was very much part of the movie. In addition, I love the fact that Lex Luthor, this really smart human, is able to make a pocket universe. So again, basically you have this expansive universe. We know that the metahumans have been around at least 300 years based on the crawl at the beginning of the film. And so at some point, you know, maybe this alien technology, this advanced technology made its way to Earth. He was able to use that technology that's been around for a bit to make his pocket universe, and that was part and parcel of just a normal life on Earth. As I said in my non-spoiler review, it opens up so many great stories, including maybe the subterranean world, intergalactic. You know, we've seen in the Peacemaker trailer parallel universes, so we may see different versions of these characters, and so I'm really excited based on what we saw in this film as to what we're going to get with the DCU. I also love the fact that we got an authentic Superman, a Superman that really, you know, is the truth, justice, you know, the American way, or whatever, you know, you want to say about it, but basically this guy who is extremely ethical. I mean, he saves a squirrel. There's a whole scene when he saves his squirrel because he wants to preserve life. He doesn't want to go around killing things. He also is also made clear that he doesn't lie. He's very authentic, he's very honest. And so, you know, when he says certain things, you know you can take that to the bank. And also, he sees potential and good in folks, even folks that might be at their core evil. I mean, Lex Luthor is, we saw how evil he was to Kal-El, and even that he believes, he hopes that he can redeem himself and become a better person, which is very different from a character like, say, the Punisher, who just blown him away. I also love the relationship between Superman, Clark Kent, Kal-El, and Lois Lane. It really felt like a real relationship. And so, you know, she's the punk rock girl. She's the very untrusting person. She's had bad relationships in the past, as she mentioned. And he is the, you know, aw shucks guy from Kansas who grew up, you know, with his parents, who we saw are very genuine as well. I love them too. And so, and also, you know, the beginning he talks about his Kryptonian parents, you know, Jor-El and Lara, and kind of how he feels that they're the ones, that's the reason that he wants to do good. And so, you know, he has that core, like, trusting, almost like childlike in some ways, but basically, you know, he sees the good, and she's kind of the opposite. She's a reporter, so she's always skeptical, always questioning, and they're almost like the yin and the yang in that they're very different, but they really complement each other, and we see that in the film. He does not dismiss her. She asks him tough questions, and while he is frustrated, he definitely understands where she's coming from and how good she is. At the flip side, while she doesn't see the world in the same way that he does, she sees the benefit of his way of being, way of thinking, because otherwise it could be a pretty horrific world if everyone, if there were no one like Superman. I also love the contrast between the Justice Gang and Superman. So there's that moment in the beginning of the kaiju fight when the Justice Gang shows up, and you know, Superman talks about preserving life, take him to the intergalactic zoo and things like that. And basically, Mr. Terrific kind of rolls his eyes, sighs, and be like, kind of almost like, oh, here we go, that type of deal. And that, I think that's great, because here's this monster who's gonna rip, destroy, and kill people, and Superman's talking about saving it. And I get his mindset in that we gotta get this threat neutralized as soon as possible to save as many people as possible. So I like that contrast. So you're gonna have the Superman, the traditional Superman, probably the same thing with Batman, when he shows up, don't kill, preserve life. And then you're gonna have the other heroes who aren't gonna have that same compunction. And I love that the film was actually really funny. There were a lot of these jokes. There were some jokes that didn't land, which I'll get to that in the second part. But there were some jokes I really loved. Guy Gardner, I really enjoyed him. Actually, I'm gonna see the film again tonight, so I'm looking forward to seeing that again. And when he reveals that to Lois that Clark Kent is Superman, even though he kind of alludes to it as well before that, and he doesn't know that how much she knows, that she knows all that. He kind of is revealing it to her, and you wonder how many people has he told Clark, Superman's secret identity. He shouldn't really know that. He probably should know that. Maybe another conk on the head with a bus might set things right. But no, that part was really funny. Steve Lombard, when he's on the flying saucer, and basically he's like, why don't I have a seat? Why don't I have a... that was funny too. That was hilarious. And there was some really funny jokes where in the theater everyone laughed out loud to it. So there's some funny jokes, and there's some stuff in there. I even like the Jimmy Olsen joke. I love those old school Jimmy Olsen comics where he's doing silly stuff and somehow he is, I don't know, he's not an equal to Superman, but he's definitely his buddy. And I can see that here as well. And so I did like those jokes, and his thing with Eve Tessmacher. I know some people didn't care for it, but I liked it. I thought it was funny. So overall, it was a funny movie. It definitely had a James Gunn style of comedy, which I do like. I love the Suicide Squad. I watched that not long ago again. I really love that. So yeah, I really like the fact that this is a funny movie. And even though it's, I've had critiques of the MCU jokiness, with James Gunn, I kind of let that have a pass there, just because that's his style, and I like his style in the same way that I like Wes Anderson's kind of weird style, or Quentin Tarantino's kind of, blaxploitation style in his films. I hope you're enjoying the video, but I just wanted to quickly mention that if you're enjoying what you're seeing from the DCU or DC Comics in general, why not buy a Funko Pop of your favorite DC character? I have a few myself and will definitely be getting more. To get your own Funko Pop DC character, click on the link in the description. I absolutely love the Supergirl cameo at the end. The version of Supergirl that we saw at the end of the Superman film is the version that is in this comic, just shorter. And yes, she does go to planets with red suns to get drunk. That happens in the comic. Takes a spaceship. I watched Jeremy John spoiler video, and he was kind of curious about that. And yes, she takes a spaceship when she has to go to other planets, which she, again, with red suns. But that's the point is, it's going to be comic book accurate based on what I saw. And I did like the fact that she's foul-mouthed. She's not Kal-El. Not all Kryptonians are Kal-El. Kal-El grew up in Kansas. He grew up with those parents. So that's part of why he is the way he is. And so other Kryptonians, Zod, Kara, Power Girl, they're different, and that's fine. And we'll see that variety in this in the DCU, and I'm glad we're going to see that for the first time, other than just the one version, the one Kryptonian that is a specific way. Alright, before I get to the stuff I don't like, I don't want to come across as overly negative. So just for the record, just to say it right now, I love this film. It's on the level of Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was one of my favorite comic book films. Oh, it's one of my favorite comic book films. It's on the level of Wonder Woman. It's on the level of the Suicide Squad by James Gunn. I really love that movie. Again, I just recently saw it again. I liked it. So it's not a bad film. And so I know there's some mixed reviews out there, and I get that. And we don't all have the same experiences, background. We don't have the same opinions. And so I don't want to come across as if I don't like the film just because I have critiques. There's no real perfect films. There's always going to be something some mistakes, some issues in there, some things you just don't like, and that's fine. So again, I'm going to say some things I don't like the film, but just for the record, I love this film. I paid money once, I'll pay it again. I paid money twice. I'm gonna see it again tonight. I really love this film. Alright, so one thing I didn't like is the fake Israel-Gaza scenario in the film. It really reminded me of the fake Iranians in Top Gun Maverick. I love that movie as well, but I felt like it's a little bit cowardly to have that in there and to kind of make it so almost like milquetoast and very kind of generic. And I get also, you could say Ukraine or what have you. I just wish they committed to more to what's going on with that situation. Make it, you don't have to explicitly say who they are, but I think you could be very much clear as to this is who we're talking about. And so even if we're not going to say the name, this is very clearly this country, this is very clearly that country. Commit to it. I wanted to see more of that. The idea that this is an allegory to what's happening. This is where Superman would be. He would have a moral stance there. He would not be on the borderline seeing what's going on. And so I wish they had committed more to that. This, you know, because it was pretty clear. One is Gaza or Ukraine. I mean, you can kind of combine them, but basically Gaza, Ukraine, and one is Israel and Russia. You know, it's very clear. And so the fact they were a little bit milquetoast with it was a little annoying. I just wish they committed more to making a moral stance rather than kind of having this kind of generic. It's more like a neighborhood in suburban America. You know, the one side and the other side, you know, just comes generic bad guys. I wish they committed more to this is what we're showing here. Maybe it was a Jim Crow South, they would be very clear. This is depicting the Jim Crow South, but because I think of fear of backlash or being labeled one way or the other, they were being a little cowardly here. But again, I like the film. I also was not a fan of how Luthor was presented in this film. So throughout the film, he's very much like one note. I hate Superman, I hate Superman. There's never a moment where you can really empathize with his hatred. So, you know, maybe even with like the beginning of Batman v Superman, which I do not like at all, but even at the beginning of that, to me, they set up Batman in that movie almost like the way Lex Luthor should have been set up. So these Kryptonians are fighting, and then there's this collateral damage and these people are hurt, and here you have this man looking up at this god who seems to be reckless and not really caring about human beings, even though he does, but the perception. And so I think if they had a setup like that where somehow Superman or a metahuman, doesn't have to be Superman, did negatively impacted Luthor and not really shaped him, I think that would have been a much better setup for Luthor. Instead, it's more, I'm a bigot, I'm a racist in that he doesn't like, you know, aliens or Kryptonians, though there's an issue I would go with the film there about him creating Kryptonian. But the point is a one-note thing, and they could have done much more. And I would not have included that scene where he shoots the guy who I'm assuming is Muslim, the whole Russian roulette. It brings him across as a cold-blooded killer, which I know at various points Luthor is that. But the point of, I think any chance of redemption is gone. This man should get a life in prison. I mean, imagine this person who helped Superman, he gets shot in the head, gets murdered. And if this was our world, he would hopefully go to prison for life. And you know, I'm not a big proponent of the death penalty, but you know, if this was, you know, federal crime or Texas or whatever, he would be executed. And so the idea that he is now going to, at some point, going to be redeemable, he's going to be on the good guy, you know, good side, that's a tough one, because again, he murdered a guy in cold blood, and that guy ain't coming back. And so yeah, so it's one of those situations where I wanted more leeway where Luthor is allowed to be sympathetic, but based on that, I don't really see that happening. As I mentioned with my non-spoiler review, you know, Luthor has this speech at the end where he kind of goes in on Superman, why he hates Superman, and it just felt so out of place. It felt like he was reading a script very emotionally. It didn't feel like a natural thing. It's like they were having a conversation, he was reacting to somebody in a real way, It was he was just having a tantrum, and he was almost like reading this speech or had this prepared speech. And so I didn't particularly care for that. And there's a lot of little issues with the writing. Some of the jokes with like the monkey typing monkeys who are like the internet trolls. They could have done so much more with that outside of just having the jokes. I think that was kind of a quick little joke that I just didn't think worked. And there were just little things in the movie as well. Some of the jokes also were a bit repetitive. While I liked, again, the joke with Green Lantern where he reveals, Clark Kent's identity, the Justice Gang gag went over and over and over again, and I didn't care for that. So there was some stuff like that. So overall, I liked the film, but those are some things I didn't like. Actually, one thing I liked, I forgot to mention, was I liked all the stuff in Metamorpho. I like to see Metamorpho fighting alongside the Justice Gang, and essentially Superman as well. Though I know he wasn't, but basically the point, him being part of this one organization, again, getting ready for the Justice League. So I like that. That was really good. And all the Metamorpho stuff. One kind of going back to the stuff I didn't like or critique was Joey in the comics, when he would touch people, he would turn them like into a different elements. And there was a great opportunity there for him to like touch one of those henchmen. So maybe he had some gloves or something on, and maybe something was blocking it. But if he once it came up, he could have touched him and then saved himself essentially, because that was kind of part in the comics in the Justice League International. And so, yeah, so I like Metamorpho overall, but that one little thing with Joey, I wish he had that ability in the I know James Gunn knows about it. He just chose not to have it in there for various reasons. But that was one little critique. I wish they had that in there. The reveal with the parents, the big twist, Laura and Jor-El. I didn't like it. I felt I liked, and this goes back to the original Superman 1978, the idea that he was sent here to be almost like a savior messiah figure. I actually did like that. That he was being sent here to be selfless, like he's being integrated into human society, even though he doesn't have to help anybody. Like he's a powerful God being. He could conquer if he wanted to. The fact that they imbued him with this purpose to come and to not do that, I like that from the comics as well as from that 1978 movie. The fact that they kind of flipped that, that they sent him here to conquer and to be a dominant figure, I didn't care for that. It's in there. It doesn't destroy the narrative or anything. It's fine, but that's not a choice I would have made. I would have made, and this is going to be to my last critique of the film. Again, I didn't want to come across as overly negative. I like the film. I wish they had made the parents to be Ultraman's parents. So having Earth 3 being a thing, and him being the Superman of Earth 3, making a deal with Lex Luthor and coming to help Luthor out with some vested interest, some benefit there. Having that and having it be his parents who really did send him to Earth would have been I would rather prefer that angle rather than what they had in the film. So again, a small thing, but it's a direction I would have went differently, but overall I like the film, so it works. It's fine. And lastly, Ultraman. I was expecting Ultraman, as I mentioned, to be a parallel version of Superman, and they didn't. It was a clone. And it opens up so many questions that I think the film doesn't really deal with. One is, if Lex Luthor hates aliens and hates Superman so much, why create a clone Kryptonian? Who in theory, and I know he has him under control, who in theory, if at some point he decides he wants to take over the world, he could. So now you have two. And so that was something that didn't make sense to me. Why clone the guy that you hate? In Lex Luthor Man of Steel, he makes a female superhero who's essentially human with super abilities, but she's human. She's not a Kryptonian as far as I know. Maybe I missed that part. And so I would have preferred something like that, him imbuing a regular person with powers. Even, I know it's not him, but let's say he cloned himself and made another Luthor with superpowers. I think that would have worked. But the way the Ultraman is, I like the scene, I like the battle. The battle was cool, but the fact that the way they did Ultraman was not great. Alright, so that's my review, my spoiler review of Superman 2025, James Gunn Superman, which I think is a great introduction to the DCU. I can't wait for Lanterns. I can't wait for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. I'm looking forward to Clayface. I'm kind of worried if they go too far with the horror, that it gets too gross. I might not be into it, but I'm gonna review it and I'll give my opinion on it. I'm gonna watch it regardless. So yeah, so you know, this is a great introduction, and I'm looking forward to more. And he had to, you know, basically get the ball, you know, in play, balls in play, and so now we get to see where this DCU goes. Alright, if you liked that review or found it interesting and or informative, please like this video, subscribe to my channel. Also, please share this video. And if there are other films in the DCU or elsewhere you want me to review, please leave those suggestions in the comment section below. Thank you all for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.